I wanted to talk about how Desi culture trains us to be submissive from a very young age. There are three ways I've noticed that this happens. The first one is normalization of cruel behavior or abuse. Bullying. The second way is that there is a romanticization of suffering, specifically quiet suffering. The third thing is a unquestioning reverence for the elderly. I wanted to talk about how Desi culture trains us to be submissive from a very young age, to not fight back, to not speak up for ourselves. It tends to focus more on women being subservient. There are three ways I've noticed that this happens. The first one is normalization of cruel behavior or abuse. Bullying between parents, between family members, cousins, siblings. It's normalized and excused. So that very early on, you're taught that the cohesion of the family is more important than the treatment of you as an individual. The second way is that there is a romanticization of suffering, specifically quiet suffering, that there is somehow something noble in quietly suffering for the greater good. Sadly, I think everyone here will be able to tell me stories of how they know mothers that put up with abusive and callous husbands because they thought that that was the right thing to do by their kids. And unfortunately, a lot of you will also be able to tell me that in the long run, that didn't work out, that those abusive husbands found ways to not take care of those children. The third thing is a unquestioning reverence for the elderly. The system has obviously worked for a while, which is why it has stayed. But we are maybe the first generation where anyone outside of sort of the ownership class that have a lot of property and wealth, both husband and wife, all my age, have to work. There's no choice. Those systems are breaking down because the economics of it are no longer making sense. We also are living much, much longer lives. Frankly, you have to put up with your partner for much, much longer, and often in much more difficult circumstances as folks either have to move abroad or simply things are tight. I think it's really important for us to remember that while our parents can be very well-meaning, they're not perfect. And you have a responsibility as someone who will be living your life and eventually might even be a parent to ensure that you're taking care of yourself and who you are so that you and your potential children are raised in healthy environments. To talk about the issues, our parents, my mom got married when she was 19. That's really common. I'm 35 now, and I can recognize at this age that at 19, I would have been ill-prepared to both question and understand the world. And they do their absolute best. I have so much admiration for my mother and how much she has grown as a person. But the reality is that 19 is very, very young. So she was not given the option, nor did she have the, shall we say, educational training to really make and ask these questions. And most of our parents did not. They came from a very different world to the one that you and I will have to deal with in the coming years. I think it's really important to tackle this culture as these old systems are no longer keeping up with the challenges of current reality.